Good afternoon. I'm here with Miss Barbara Penn, um, counselor at Outside In. Miss Penn, could you please give us a little rundown about who you are, official title? I apologize if I got it wrong
Sure.
initially.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Barb Penn. I started working at Outside In 2004. I came from Western Psych, where I had been working full time in the dual diagnosed unit. I had gone back to school and had just gotten my master's degree at the University of Pittsburgh. And I was fortunate enough to get a practicum at Western Psych. And then they hired me. And then while I was there, I met somebody who worked at Outside In. And I came here for a tour. And at some point, they contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested in working here. So I came in 2004, and I worked in Greensburg for 4 years doing outpatient. And then I came to the campus here in the residential program, and I've been here ever since.
Okay. What would you say is the most satisfying thing about your job at Outside In?
I would say, I can't say there's any one thing. There are a lot of things that are satisfying, and especially working with the boys and seeing them succeed is the best thing. But it happens in increments sometimes. It's not always a great big change overnight. Sometimes it's a slow process. But when I see them go to court and I know that they've successfully completed the program and that we've given them the best chance at succeeding, that's probably the most fulfilling part of my job. When I see them go back home with their family members and that I know that they're getting along and they're building back trust and respect, earning that back with their families. When I see students who thought they weren't going to graduate are able to take the GED here, and some of them have gone on to college. I just heard from a boy that I did a 6-month review, and he's in college right now. He got his GED
Mm-hmm.
here. Those are the rewarding things about working at Outside In.
I can see how those positive aspects can translate to your everyday life outside the work environment.
Yes.
And what are some of the challenges you'd say you've had in your day to day?
The challenges would be, I don't think there are challenges are here at Outside In. This is a great program. The challenges are when we have to discharge students home and we know that their environment is still compromised. We know that the families are still struggling, and it's very difficult to discharge them into that situation knowing that it will compromise their chances at success.
Yes, it's relevant that you talk about the culture that they are going back to.
Yes.
But what would you say is the culture outside in, and how different is that from some of the environments these guys are
The
coming in?
culture here, we all work together, and we refer to ourselves as the treatment team. And the treatment team is made up of the residential program, the academic program, and the clinical department. And we all work together. We come together once a week, and we focus on one student at a time. And I would say that that's probably, the culture here is of enthusiasm, hope, certainly expectations from each other. But more than that, I just think we all enjoy working together. We admire each other's skills, and there's no competitiveness for someone else's job, or there's none of that here. It's an enthusiastic, positive, motivational culture.
Professionals who work for human services have several agencies to choose from. What would make them work for Outside In?
Because Outside In really does address the total person. They really do. I think that the physical part of the program here is so important, although I have nothing to do with it. And when people first see me and I'm older, they think, but it is such an integral part of the program because it makes the boys be able to feel a physical change as well as the emotional change that they're going through, and then also going through the process of recovery itself.
Wow. Is there any particular success story that stands out over the time you've worked with Outside In? something that you can look back and
Yes, yes, lots. I mean, I could go on with the stories that I could tell you. But most recently, Mr. Porath came into my office, and he had received a message on Facebook from one of the students that we had here. And he was only 13 when he came here, and he was a big boy. He was taller, looked older, and he was into using marijuana every day. He came from a good family. Parents were professionals, and he was really struggling. And he came, and he went on a trip, and he went with Mr. Klein, and it was a difficult trip. They did backpacking and hiking, and the terrain was very steep. And he said to me after the trip, he said, you're on a steep trail when you get tired, and you could just put your hand up and lean against the trail. But he finished that trip, and that was amazing to him. And there were pictures here that we had of him with his arms stretched out. He was very enthusiastic, and he did well in the program. He went home, and he got back to Mr. Porath, and he said, it kind of makes me stop. One of the most rewarding outcomes for one of our students came for me when Mr. P, who's a team leader, came into my office, and he had gotten a tweet or whatever on Facebook from one of the students that had been here and had completed the program. And he was young, he was only 13, and he was using a lot of marijuana. And his probation officer had sent him here. And both parents, professional people, came from a good family, but he was really struggling. And when he came here, he had some problems at first, but he went on a backpack hiking trip and did very well. It was a rough trip and very steep terrain. And he said that when he was doing it, a lot of the students wanted to stop. There were 4 of them that wanted to stop, and he hung in there and kept doing it. And when he got back, he was very excited, very enthusiastic about it, and finished our program very strong. And after he'd been home for probably more than 6 months, he got in touch with Mr. Porath. And he told him, he said, well, first he took a picture of himself because he had done a lot of weightlifting while he was here, and he had gotten in really good shape. But he continued that when he went home. That was the great thing about it. And so he wanted to show Mr. P what good shape he was in. And he said, someday when I get older and I have a family, I'm going to tell my children about Outside In and how great an experience it was for me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I mean. There are so many things, so many stories I could tell you, but that's one that sticks out in my mind. So, the physical part of the program helped him. He got clean, and he was able to make up credits while he was here. It was just a complete and total success.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of great things about Miss Penn, Barbara, and it's always good to get that feedback from the students.
It is fantastic. It's fantastic.
Right. Is there anything else you'd want to add before we sign off today?
Well, I'll say this. My friends often say to me, isn't it depressing to do what you do? And I said, not at all. It's very uplifting because I can walk in the door in the morning and I know that I'm going to run into an employee, a fellow employee, and I'm going to be laughing within the first couple minutes. That's the kind of culture that's at Outside In. It's very supportive, it's upbeat, it's happy, it's positive, motivational. It's all of that rolled into. It's a great place to work. I'm privileged to work here.
Outside In is privileged to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Penn.